Welcome to this video where we will look at the Mc Nemar Chi-square with a few examples. So I have this document and it's on Blackboard. You can download it and you can work it out yourself. So what does it say? Well, it says a study recruited 40 hypertensive individuals. They were treated with drug A for 2 weeks. So when they were treated with drug A, 10 reported having side effects and obviously 30 did not. Then all patients were shifted to drug B. So you see, when you hear that, you know that we're going to test the same people twice, and thus we're going to have a paired testing. Okay, and when it's a paired testing, an AML paired t-test or the Mc Nemar. So this time, 8 started reporting side effects for the first time. شو معناتها 8 started reporting side effects؟ يعني هول ال 8 they did not report side effects the first time. These are only reporting side effects with drug B. They did not report side effects on drug A. While 5 that reported side effects on drug A, يعني من هول if you remember كان عندنا 10 that reported side effects on drug A. Now 5 of those also reported side effects on drug B. So so how do we set it up? Okay, so أول شيء خلينا نتأكد إنه it's a chi-square. You ask your famous 3 questions. How many groups do we have? Well, we have the grouping variable, هنا drug A and drug B. These are the 2 drugs I want to compare. And I want to compare them with regard to what? Well, side effects, obviously. So it's categorical outcome. طيب, last question. Are these the same people or different people? They are the same people. So 2 groups, categorical outcome, same people. It's Mc Nemar. Azim. So once I know it's the Mc Nemar, I realize setting up the Mc Nemar is a bit different than setting up the chi-square. First, you have the before, yani the first reading, and it happens the first reading is drug A. How many reported side effects? So I had 10 that reported side effects, and كانوا 40, so 30 did not report side effects. So I'm going to use the bar. If you remember when we talked about probability, the bar, yani ما في side effects. Remember, hypertensive عظيم. Excellent. Let's continue. What happened next? Then I shifted everybody to drug A, and then we were told that when you shifted them to drug B, so هون كانوا drug A, هون drug B. So when you shifted them to drug B, you started seeing 8 new cases of side effects. يعني, as we said, out of those that did not report side effects, you had 8 that started reporting side effects, and therefore the rest, the 22, ضلهم no side effects. And then you were told that out of the 10 that reported side effects, 5 they kept reporting side effects. Sorry, that my ass looks like a 5. And 5 لكن بما انه 5 kept reporting, لكن 5 stopped reporting side effects. Okay? وهول هن the 4 pairs that you need to work with. So side effects on A, side effects on B, 5. So let's set up the table. The way we set up the table is بتتذكروا before and after. So what is before? Drug A is before and drug B is the after. وهون عندي side effects. So حسميها side effects حتى نتذكر. وهون no. وبالبي نفس الشيء عندي side effect no. Okay, so those that had side effects on both كانوا 5. So هول الخمسة I'm going to plug them right here. Side effects on both. And what about these 5 right here? Well, they had side effects on A, but no side effects on B. So side effects on A, no side effects on B. I have 5 over here. Okay. Now, for what about these 8 right there? Well, these are the no side effects on A, but they did have but they did have side effects on B. So كانوا no side effects on A وصار عندهم side effects on B هول 8 right here واخر شيء 22 يلي no side effects no side effects هول بنحطهم wide there. Okay, so quickly let's calculate the margins. 5 and 5 10, and we shouldn't be surprised لأنه هول 10 of A. Okay, which leave us with 30. So 10 and the total is 40. So the proportion of having side effects لما بيكون عم ياخد drug A is 10 out of 40, and this is 25%. Okay, let's look at what happens when you're on drug B. Well, 5 plus 8, this is 13. When we were reading the problem, they didn't tell us 13. We had to figure out this 13 لحالنا. Okay, and 5 plus 22 is 27. So 13 plus 27 is 40. So the proportion of side effects on drug B is 13 over 40. And that, my friends, is, well, I need to calculate it. Hello, I will calculate it. So it's 13 divided by 40. That is 32.5%. Okay, 32.5%. Azim. So obviously, do we have evidence to suggest that these two percentages are statistically different? Wala la. Okay. So let's check the requirement first. The requirement says that cell B plus cell A, B, C اثنيناتهم مع بعضهم together they should be greater than 10. So 8 plus 5 is actually 13, greater than 10, we're fine. شو formula of the Mc Nemar chi-square? The formula of the Mc Nemar chi-square, I'm just going to clean up a little bit so that I can write things. Okay. So the formula of the chi-square is B minus C. You square that difference. You do a minus 1 as a correction term, and then you divide by B plus C. Remember, when you're dealing with the Mc Nemar chi-square, you only worry about ناس يلي غيروا. So هول كان عندهم side effects وبطل عندهم side effects، وهول ما كان عندهم وصار عندهم. أما هول يلي ما غيروا ما بفوتوا بالcalculation. So our calculation becomes 5 minus 8. It doesn't matter that it's a negative value since I'm going to square. Minus 1 divided by 5 plus 8. So, so 5 minus 8, that's 3. 3 square is 9. I hope I'm not making any mistake. مظبوط. So 9 minus 1 is 8. 8 divided by 13 is 0.61. So again, هيدي هون حتعطيكم negative 3. You square it, you get 9. 9 divided by minus 1 divided by 13. So that's 8 divided by 13. And this is 0.6 something. Should degrees of freedom? The degrees of freedom is actually 1. Okay, remember you have 2 columns, 2 rows. It gets your degrees of freedom at 1. So then let's go to your chi-square table. Degrees of freedom 1. طلع معنا الvalue 0.6 something. So 0.6 is right here between 0.455 and 2.7. So that means our p-value is between 50% and 10%. Okay, so things are going great. My p-value is less than 50%, but it's greater than 10%. Huh? Let me just double check. Yeah. Okay, excellent. So, and if you want me to remind you what is this p-value, it's the probability if in fact there's no difference in proportion reporting side effects between drug A and drug B. Is that drug A with drug B causes side effects at the same rate. The probability that you will notice a difference between 25 and 32.5 or even more extreme, that probability is between 10% and 50%. Therefore, this probability is quite large. Therefore, there's no reason for you to reject the null hypothesis. So our p-value is greater than alpha, and therefore we're going to fail to reject the null hypothesis. And therefore, you're going to say that we do not have evidence to suggest that there is a difference in the proportion of side effects between drug A and drug B. The observed difference between 25% and 32.5% is due to chance only. Okay, so we actually have run the entire testing hypothesis, but let's see what were the questions. So the first question we had, what percent reported side effects on drug A and what percentage reported side effects on drug B? We did this calculation, 25% on drug A and 32.5% on drug B. To be able to answer that question, we had to set up this table right here. لأنه just by reading, you could not have figured it out. Is there a statistical difference between the two percentages? Remember, we failed to reject, and therefore لا ما في statistical difference between the two percentages. The difference was due to chance only. Come up with a scenario that would reduce your effect size. All right, so let's look again at our example. شو effect size? Remember, the effect size is the observed difference. يعني the difference between 25% and 32.5%. What, how could, what could have happened so that actually my side effects is even smaller? يعني يا أما I have to increase this 25%, يا أما I have to decrease this 32.5%. And I'm going to pick the scenario where I'm going to decrease this. So I'm going to decrease it by saying, no, actually ما كانوا 13, كانوا less than that. So how I do that? Well, to get to that 13, I had to add the 5 to the 8. So what I say is that actually هول ما كانوا 8, كانوا مثلا لنقول 6. So هول ال 8 بينوا هون. 8 started reporting side effects for the first time. I can say actually ما كانوا 8, كانوا 6. 2 that I thought actually had side effects that are random side effects. They actually just caught a flu, and what I thought it was side effects just happened to be the flu. So in fact, ما كان عندهم side effects, and therefore the total number of reporting side effects for the first time with drug B can 6. Okay. Type. How would that impact question number? What would be the impact of question number 3? Azim, so is your effect size صغر. What happens? Uh, what happens? Okay, so again, every time I do that, برجع برسمكم إياها للtable so that you remember how it works. Okay, so let's do this quickly. If you remember on the table, hi. And I keep saying that this is reality that you do not know unless I tell you something about it. And either the reality that the null is true or the null is false. And from the other side, this is your test results. So either your test is to fail to reject or to reject based on the p-value, of course. And therefore, out of that, you get either a correct decision, which is 1 minus alpha, or a type 1 error, usually we call it alpha, or a type 2 error, which we call beta, and آخر شيء power, which is 1 minus beta. Okay. Okay. And what I did previously in another video is that I told you that this power here, so power is related to effect size, also to sample size. And I told you that كل ما sample size بيعلى كل ما الباور بيعلى. Okay, this is how we linked power to sample size. The other thing we said about power and effect size was that كل ما effect size بيعلى, so as effect size increases, power increases as well. And therefore, if your effect size decreases, power decreases. Okay, so نحن in that example we did something so that the effect size decreases, يعني your power decreases. So where is power? Power is here, right? بس نحن in that test that we just ran, we failed to reject. when you fail to reject, only one of two things happen. يا إما it was a correct decision 1 minus alpha, يا إما it was an error, type 2 error. إذا for some reason we're already in the type 2 error, if your power is even smaller, يعني you have even more chances of being here. Yani we have more chances of failing to reject. So actually nothing is going to change in our conclusion because we already failed to reject. Okay. All right. Here's the second one. Second one says 80 students were asked if they had a positive opinion about their statistic professor. 50 said yes, and 30 said no. We have a negative opinion about our stat professor. The same student were asked the same question after the final exam, and 10 had changed their opinion from positive to negative, while 24 changed their opinion from negative to positive. Okay. So if you get this question in the exam, how do you figure out what test to use? So your first clue is that we're asking the same people twice. So every time you're asking the same people twice, معناتها عندكم paired, matched. And since we're asking them only twice, so it's only two groups. So it's before the exam and after the exam. Then you ask yourself, okay, I'm asking them about what? Is it a numerical outcome? Am I measuring their weight? Am I measuring their... No, it's either positive or negative. So it's a categorical result. And therefore, hopefully, if you do that, you realize that this is Pearson, sorry, Mc Nemar. All right, so let's set it up like we did with the first one. Okay, so I'm just gonna put it right here. So it says I had 80 students, so I start up with 80. Okay, and I'm asking them if they have a positive or a negative opinion. So before the exam كان عندي 50 positive وكان عندي 30 negative, صح؟ Okay, and then what happened? Then they took the exam. So in blue كان before. Okay, and then let's see after the exam. So after the exam is in red. So what happened? We asked the same question after the question. 10 had changed their opinion from positive to negative. So after the exam عندي 10 غيروا صاروا negative يعني معناتها 40 ضلوا positive. Okay. طيب. What about اللي كانوا negative? 24 changed their opinion from negative to positive. So again here عندي 24 صاروا positive مع انه كانوا negative معناتها قد ايه ضلوا negative 6. Alright, so now I have my 4 cells. Alright, so now that I have these the 4 values that I need, I can set up my table the way that should be set up for the Mc Nemar. All right, so the Mc Nemar is set up such that if you remember, you have the before, and then you have the after, and so I have positive, negative, positive, negative. So يلي كانوا positive and they remained positive هني هول ال 40. I put them right here. Those that were positive but then they changed their opinion, they became negative. These are 10. Going to plug them there. All right, so those that were negative and they changed into positive. So negative will change to positive is 24 right here. And the 6 that come in did not change. I'm going to put them here. And now I can calculate the totals, but let me just clean up a little bit. All right. So once you fill out this table, everything else becomes very easy to do. Okay, so let's fill up the table. So 40 plus 10 is 50, and this is 30. The total is equal to 80. And then you have 16 here, and this is 64. So the proportion اللي هني positive before the exam, okay, so this is the 50 out of the 80, so 50 divided by 80, and the proportion positive after the exam. So Holil 64 over 80. 64 out of 80, that's easy. That's 80%. Okay, let me just figure out 50 out of 80 at dish. So 50 out of 80, that's 62.5%. Okay, so قبل الامتحان we had 62.5% that had positive attitude or perception about the professor before the exam. After the exam, that was went up to 80%, and therefore we want to know if this difference is statistically significant. If I want to do it like if I want to write my null hypothesis, it will be proportion positive perception attitude. I forgot what was it. It was opinion. Okay, so positive opinion before equal proportion positive opinion after. So that would be my null hypothesis. My alternative hypothesis هو المنن equal لبعض. Step number 2, assume the null is true, set alpha 5%. Calculate the Mc Nemar chi-square. The requirement is that this cell plus that cell have to be together greater than 10, and they are. And therefore, if I want to write my chi-square, it will be the difference between, so 24 minus 10 is 14. So 14 square minus 1 divided by 24 plus 10 is 34. Degrees of freedom, remember it's 1. Dayman degrees of freedom is 1 when you have a Mc Nemar. Alright, so let's say 14, if you square the 14, you get 196. Minus 1, you get 195. And you're going to divide it by 34. So that will give you 195 divided by 34. 5.73. Okay. All right, let's figure out the p-value for this test. Degrees of freedom 1. You're looking for 5.73. So 5.73 is between these two values, the 3.84 and the 6.635. And therefore, our p-value is between 5% and 1%. Okay. So, شوية تنظيف as usual. Okay. طيب, if I do the p-value is going to be between, so it's definitely less than 5%, definitely less than 0.05, but it's greater than 0.01. Therefore, I'm going to reject the null hypothesis, and I'm going to declare that the difference is statistically significant. Yani apparently, في change in the opinion of students before and after the exam. And based on the results obtained, I can say that the change is the positive after the exam can higher than before the exam. If I ask you, what do you think is the best interpretation of the effect size? Well, it's the difference between these two values right there. So your effect size is 80 minus 62.5, so it's about 17.5%. This is not the best interpretation of the effect size, but this is the one that we're going to use in this class. Okay, so that is your effect size. Azim, let's look at the questions. So what were the questions? So the questions were summarize the results, which we did. I mean, we calculated the percentage positive before the exam and the positive after the exam. Okay. How in fact is we want to be correct 100%. The way you need to summarize it is that you need to create a table, because this table is not good for summarizing. This table is good for your results, for your calculation. But if you want to summarize, you have to create a table that has a good title, etc. So, for example, you're going to have before exam, after exam, and you're going to have positive and negative, and you're going to set up your table so that you put the n and the percentage for each one. Okay, so you put the n, you put the percentage, and then you're going to put the chi-square that we talked about, that we calculated with the degrees of freedom, and then you're going to put the p-value. So كل هذه بتيجي بتيبل وحدة that has a title that is a complete title. Okay, type. Let's continue with the questions. Can you identify the independent and dependent, identify the independent, which hypothesis? I think the question, can you identify the independent and dependent variables? دايما الاندبندنت variable هي الجروبينج variable. So الجروبينج variable I'm comparing مين لمين, comparing لل before لل after. So this is your independent variable. Your dependent variable is your outcome measure. So what is my outcome is opinion, positive or negative. Calculate the test and the p-value. We did that. What is your research conclusion? We did that. We have a research conclusion. What if if it wasn't 24 that changed opinion from negative to positive, rather 14? How would that impact your results? Oh shoot, I I deleted the table. I wish I didn't. Let's see if I can do a lot of undos and can get back my table. So I'm gonna try to get the table because I'm gonna need it to answer this question. All right, Azim. Great, I was able to get it. So the question, what if instead of 24, actually it was 14? Okay, so يعني كان هيدا هون لازم يكون 14. So هون لازم يكونوا 14. معناتها if they add up to 30 هون بدهم يكونوا 16. So that means 10 plus 16 هون بيصيروا 26 وهول بيصيروا 54. What happens to that? Well, what that is doing is it making your effect size smaller because هول ال 50 over 80 ما حيتغيروا، بس بدل ما يكون عندنا 54 over 80 حيصير عندنا 54 over 80. اوكي، سو لما بيصير عندنا 54 over 80 هذه بتبطل 80%، بتصير 54 over 80 بتصير 67.5. So this becomes 67.5%, meaning that the difference between all the two values gets smaller. يعني your effect size got smaller. What happens when your effect size gets smaller? If you remember in previous lectures, we talked about this. When your effect size is smaller, your power gets smaller. And when your power gets smaller, if you already rejected, you may not reject anymore. So if you were to recalculate your إذا بترجعوا لنعمل chi-square again, so ساعتها ال chi-square بيصير 10 minus 14, so that's 4. 4 squared is 16 minus 1 بيصير عندنا 15 divided by 34. This value is going to be small and your p-value is definitely going to be greater than alpha. Okay, and we predicted that because lower effect size, lower power. So when you have a lower power, you may fail to reject, and therefore our entire conclusion is going to change. Okay. All right, so that's it. We worked 2 problems with the Mc Nemar and we answered all the questions. I hope you find this this example helpful.